Courage or crazy? Courage to get through life, and a whole lot of crazy to survive life. Trapper, Teresa, and Cheryl, your ambassadors of Courage or Crazy. Sharing life with you, uncensored and unfiltered. Real life, real people, real courage, real crazy.
Hi, my name is Trapper Moore, and I'm a co-founder of Courage or Crazy, which is kind of ironic because I don't see myself as a co-founder. I see myself as a co-creator to breathe life into Courage and Crazy. I really give credit to Cheryl Oliver as the founder of Courage or Crazy, and Teresa Grimm and myself as co-creators. But I'm happy that you're all joining us, and I get to share my journey of Courage or Crazy, and why it's important to me. Cheryl shared with us that February 2006 was a pivotal, life-changing moment in her life with the loss of her son. And in 2005, our youngest daughter was a year old, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And I worked in Indian gaming. I was a marketing executive. And ironically, my other half, Tanya, was my director of marketing and my boss. So in my own journey, prior to meeting Cheryl, when you are told and informed that you are chronically ill, critically ill, terminally ill, it's very scary. And it was a very scary time in my life with a young family. And I used to think that Tanya was putting me through hell. Her philosophy was get up, nothing changes. We go to work, we raise our family, you go to treatment, you come back to work. And I did that for weeks and weeks and weeks, throwing up in the trash can in my office after chemotherapy, feeling sick and tired. But we survived. And a few years later, I met Cheryl Oliver, who I like to say is one of my bestest friends in the whole world, but she's really more family than friend. And after being diagnosed ill and overcoming that and surviving that, I went on with my career as a publicist, working in public relations and public affairs. And it was very intense, a lot of work, a lot of hours. And in a moment, I decided that life is too short to work for someone else, and decided to branch out and be independent and live that American dream of being a small business owner, and all that bullshit that they teach you in those Disney movies, right? And as a small business owner, I came to meet Cheryl Oliver, which was actually very life changing for me. I did not know that at the time, but I look back, and I think when people reflect on life, there's certain moments that you look back and reflect on that are life changing. And I know that meeting Cheryl was very life changing for me, and she's one of a kind of gal. And in meeting Cheryl, it was through business, and I came to know a little bit about her journey. One of the most fascinating things about Cheryl is she's not an Arizonan. We live here in Arizona. It's the wild fucking West, honestly, and a bunch of small towns. And I could not imagine why someone would come from the Midwest to literally the geographic center of Arizona, where there's really nothing, and start a business. And that was very intriguing to me, because I'm like, you're not from around here, right? Like, this is the good old boys club. If you're not part of the good old boys, you don't find success here. But she was out here doing it, which really fascinated me. Like, where did this bitch come from? Like, what is she doing? Who does she think she is? But I need to know her. And this one day in my office, keep in mind, we were in the center of Arizona. There's really not a thriving economy. It's very small. And we were talking about business and how do we stimulate business? How do we bring people together? How do we network? And I started learning more about Cheryl, and she was, we're planning a networking event, and we were going to also do a fundraiser. And I my career has been in social impact work, community work. So I'm always down for a good fucking fundraiser, right? Especially if it benefits families, kids, youth. And the beneficiary of our fundraiser was this organization called Compassionate Friends, which I didn't even know existed. And when she's telling me about it, I'm thinking like Compassionate Friends, like what the hell is that? That I don't know. And she started explaining to me it's a group that she helped found and lead, of parents who have lost a child, and they support each other, they talk with each other, they encourage each other, and Cheryl shared with me her journey of losing RJ, and in that moment, um, I didn't have a conference table because I was raised super fucking country. So my conference table was a kitchen table, because a kitchen table is where you do business, and that's where things happen in country family. So sitting across from my makeshift conference table, I did look at Cheryl and said, damn, that took a lot of courage, Cheryl, to um, to survive the loss of a child and be a single mother, to two younger boys, raising them. And you got to know something about Cheryl. She don't just raise her kids. This bitch raises her kids. These are good young men, right? They have values. They work hard. They're respectful. And then to not even be from Arizona, and this bitch being the number one business of her little niche here, I just told her that took a hell of a lot of courage. And Cheryl has a great sense of humor and an infectious laugh, and she smiled and laughed the way Cheryl does, and said, "Trap, I don't know if that took courage, but it took a whole lot of fucking crazy." And we laughed about that. And over the years, we produced networking events, and then Cheryl's a wild gal. She raised a lot of hell. And then she dipped out on me here in the Verde Valley. She moved to Southern Arizona. But she is a one-of-a-kind gal. She still had her clients up here in my area. So every time Cheryl would come up to see clients, she would stop by my office, and we would visit, we would laugh, we'd share stories, and the struggles of being a parent, the struggle of being a parent in these modern times, technology, the struggle of trying to operate a business when you have bills to pay and kids to feed, but everyone wants something cheap or for free in your services. We always ask ourselves, we don't know if we're crazy or it takes a lot of fucking courage to do what we're doing, right? And over the years, it didn't matter what happened in my life, even though Cheryl dipped out on me and found a new bestie in Teresa there. I'm not bitter. I'm not jealous. I'm really happy for Cheryl. But she did dip out on me. Like, let's not get that wrong, okay? But I always would call Cheryl. It didn't matter if I had the worst fucking date with somebody. If I had a client that was hard to deal with, or if I just really wanted to fucking kill my client, it did not matter. And along the way, I inherited my grandmother. Okay. And I like to think my grandma is what keeps me and Cheryl bound together because Cheryl is as country as they come. But my grandmother came to Arizona in a covered wagon. So as you can imagine, my grandmother believes in hard work from sun up to sundown. A couch is for decoration. You don't sit on it. You don't lay on it. You eat 3 meals a day, and you got to whip that shit up, right? Like there's no popping anything in a microwave. So I inherited my grandmother when Cheryl was dipping out and moving on to Southern Arizona with Teresa to have good times and tequila shots, and taking care of my elderly grandmother was just a very challenging thing in my life. Like there's a generational gap. I'm trying to work from home and sustain a business, and I have the original pioneer woman up my ass about everything. My grandma always says, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right, which means everything has to be perfect. And so I would always call Cheryl and share a crazy story of my grandmother, or how she's irritating the hell out of me, or whatever it was. We always laugh and say, it takes a lot of crazy to get through this life, but we got a lot of courage. And, over the years, Cheryl kept coming up, visiting clients. And I would say a milestone for Courage or Crazy. We went to a barbecue place. Cheryl loves barbecue and obviously barbecue sauce. And she said she did start a cute little small business in Southern Arizona. And that fucking business was barbecue sauce. So while we're at the barbecue place, we're making notes, but we were using the back of the disposable menu placemat, whatever it was. And Cheryl had barbecue sauce all over her shit. We took all these notes. We were going to launch Courage or Crazy. And, and end of lunch, Cheryl put her barbecue sauce notes in her purse, and I threw mine somewhere in the damn truck. We parted ways, and years went by, COVID came, and we stayed in contact, and we laughed about Courage, we laughed about Crazy. She always told me about her friend Teresa, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about Teresa, okay? I'm your best friend, me, right here, okay? Distance makes the heart grow fonder, Cheryl. I'm the number one. And we would laugh, and she continued thriving, and I did well for myself. And when COVID as a global pandemic hit, I know for so many businesses, it killed them. Businesses closed, businesses went out of business, businesses struggled. For myself, I represented hospitals, I represented mining companies. So for 24 hours a day for 18 months, it was nonstop COVID relief efforts or incident command meetings and calls, and getting vaccines into rural Arizona. So by the time COVID was over and things are kind of a little bit back to a new sense of normal in 2022, I was literally burnt the fuck out. Our youngest daughter, who I didn't know if I would ever actually see to graduate, after being diagnosed a year with a terminally ill, illness, graduated high school, and I literally decided that I was burnt out and I was no longer going to do any more public relations or public affairs. My work in communities was done. My work in politics was done, and decided to take a moment and breathe, refocus, repurpose, and regroup. And that sounded really great, but honestly, life became very boring. Days are long. You go from being in high demand, super relevant, and 12 hours a day of calls and Zoom meetings and all that to nothing. And this one day, my phone rang and it said Cheryl Oliver. And I honestly thought about ignoring that bitch because I hadn't heard from her in a while. But it was her lucky fucking day with me because I answered the call, missing my bestest friend there, right? And in typical Cheryl fashion, she's talking loud, fast, and we found the missing link, and remember this concept of courage or crazy? And I'm like, yeah. And you know what? You had perfect timing because I'm bored as hell, Cheryl. Like, I need something to do. And she introduced me to Teresa, and I felt instantly connected to Teresa, even though me and Teresa really don't even know each other. But I love Teresa. I'm connected to Teresa. And in that moment, I realized Teresa's our missing link, right? Just like in life, as a parent or a business owner or just a human being, sometimes there's just missing pieces to certain things that eventually emerge. And Teresa emerged. And in that moment, us as a trio decided we were going to fucking make Courage or Crazy happen. And I was so excited about it because I've always told Cheryl, we're not the only single parents. And we're not the only struggling business owners. We're not the only caretakers of elderly grandparents, or we're not the only folks, still grieving and dealing and healing from death or loss of life. I can't imagine how many people get in a vehicle every day, driving to work, driving to school, going to the grocery store, trying to figure out how the fuck to buy $25 in groceries when you have 17 in the bank account. It's stressful. And, I've been there, but I always had Cheryl. I've always felt so fucking blessed that no matter what I was going through, I had Cheryl. And I don't know if everyone in the world has a Cheryl. So I was so excited to launch Courage or Crazy. And since that moment, these gals, we've been balls to the wall to share stories. People connect through storytelling. We're verbal, right? So we connect emotionally, we connect mentally, we connect through relationships, verbally, by sharing stories and testimonies and experiences. And I think that we all can relate to some of our stories. And as a trio, we want to hear everyone's story because I know we can connect with what someone's experiencing. And I know Cheryl's a busy woman, but everyone needs a Cheryl in their life, honestly. And today, we breathed new life into Courage or Crazy, not as a get-rich-quick overnight scheme. If we want that, we can sling our old-ass bodies on the OnlyFans. We have launched Courage or Crazy to connect with people, everyday average people. Everyone reads these Tony Robbins bullshits. You can make it, $10 million in 10 months because you got to coach this. And everyone can do this. You know what? As an average person, we just want to have quality. We want to have friendship. We want to laugh. We want to know that we're not alone in this world. And with that, life has been breathed into Courage or Crazy. It's one of the proudest moments of my entire life. And I'm very, very honored to be part of this trio. For me, Courage or Crazy has a deep meaning. It's a form of expression. And all too often, I think we use social media as people these days to express, but we don't really get to deeply express. We don't get to share the whole story. We don't get to hear laughter. We don't get to hear crying. We don't get to hear someone say, it's okay, tomorrow's a new day. So for me, Courage or Crazy means that everyone in the world has a Cheryl. You have listening ears. You're not alone in whatever you're experiencing. You're not the first person to struggle. You're not the first person to fail. You're not the first person to wonder if you're doing the right thing for your family. And through Courage or Crazy, we can all connect. What it means for our listeners and audience, I think for myself as a social practitioner professionally, I recognized during the COVID-19 pandemic that even with technology, people want to connect. And when you can't connect and you can't be social, we struggle. We struggle mentally. We struggle emotionally. And so I hope that every single one of our listeners knows that we want to hear your stories. We want to hear your experiences. We want you to share with us, and we want to share with you. And no one's alone. We all have a Cheryl. And so I think that Courage or Crazy is a concept that some people might be offended by the laughing, the crying, or the cussing, or the ranting, or the raving. But sometimes um, every person needs to cry a little. We need to laugh a lot. Sometimes people just need to step outside and scream "fuck," and at other times we just want to know that we're not alone. You know, um, and connect on everyday issues. We don't give a fuck what millionaires or Kardashians or that's all bullshit. As everyday people, we want to connect with everyday people, and that's what Courage or Crazy is. And I hope that each one of our listeners and followers become fans of Courage or Crazy. I hope that it connects to you in some way emotionally, um, because we all know that at any given moment in life, whether it's in our past or going forward in the future, it takes a hell of a lot of crazy just to survive a day. And there takes more than, there's too many moments to count in life that we look back on and know that it took a huge amount of courage just to get by, just to survive, just to keep the smile going, just to feed our kids and still exist. And we can all stand here today and say, we're here. And that's a beautiful thing. So, um, with that, I hope that you continue tuning in and follow us, love us. Um, I told Teresa and Cheryl, we're like art. Sometimes you don't understand us initially, but as all weird pieces of art, sometimes we grow on you. So I hope that we grow on you, that we enter your hearts and minds, and I hope that that's mutual. That we hear from our followers and our listeners, um, and you share with us. So thank you, and it's a blessed day to be able to breathe the life into Courage or Crazy.